Welcome to the Deep Dive series. Today, we're tackling a massive topic, how people use ChatGPT. 5 surprising truths about 700 million users worldwide. Now, since it first exploded onto the scene, ChatGPT has completely dominated the conversation, right? We all feel like we know the story. It's the ultimate productivity hack, the super smart assistant that's revolutionizing how we work, write code, and do business. But what if that story, the one we've been told over and over, is already out of date? What if it's just one small piece of a much bigger, much more surprising picture? Well, a groundbreaking report co-authored by researchers at OpenAI and top economists from Harvard, published by the prestigious National Bureau of Economic Research, just gave us the first real, data-backed look at how a staggering 700 million people actually use this technology every single week. And let me tell you, the truth is not what you think. So today, we're going to dive deep into that report, cut through the hype, and uncover 5 powerful truths that could change everything you think you know about the AI revolution. So here's our roadmap for today's deep dive. First, we're going to set the stage and talk about why this 700 million user report is such a big deal. Then we'll unpack the 5 surprising truths, one by one, starting with how AI is becoming a life partner, not just an office tool, and digging into some really complex hidden divides it's revealing in our society. And finally, we'll get to the big money question. Is this all just one giant AI bubble? And more importantly, what's your strategic edge? What does this data tell you, as an investor or a knowledge worker, about where the real opportunities lie? Let's get into it. Okay, so before we jump into the findings, let's just take a moment to understand why this report is so incredibly important. You know, for the past couple of years, the conversation around AI has been driven by anecdotes, by speculation, by headlines. This report changes all of that. This is the largest, most comprehensive study of its kind. And it's not just some corporate white paper. This is a serious academic study co-authored by the data scientists at OpenAI, the people with direct access, and leading economists from Harvard. And it was published by the NBR, the National Bureau of Economic Research. For anyone who follows economics, you know that's the gold standard. We're talking about an institution where dozens of Nobel laureates have published their work. They analyzed 1.5 million conversations, all while maintaining strict user privacy, to give us the ground truth. So the findings we're about to discuss, they're about as authoritative as it gets. First, let's just let this number sink in for a moment. 700 million. Now let's be really clear about what this number means. This isn't total downloads. It's not the number of people who tried it once. This is the number of weekly active users. That means nearly 1 out of every 10 adults on this planet is actively using ChatGPT every single week. To put that into perspective, the kind of adoption speed we're seeing is completely unprecedented in the history of technology. Facebook, it took them over 4 years to hit 100 million users. TikTok, which we all thought was lightning fast, took 9 months. ChatGPT did it in 2 months. This isn't just a popular app hitting a growth spurt. This is a fundamental technological shift happening at a pace we've literally never seen before.
Okay, so let's get into our first, and I gotta say, probably the most paradigm-shifting truth from this entire report. I want you to just pause for a second and think. When you hear the term ChatGPT, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, especially in the tech and finance worlds, it's probably productivity tool, work assistant, code generator, email drafter, right? The entire narrative has been about how it's changing the future of work. But the hard data, well, it tells a completely different and, frankly, a much bigger story.
This slide really just lays it out in black and white. On the left, you've got the myth that has dominated every news cycle and investor deck, that ChatGPT is an office tool. But on the right, you have the data-driven truth. Its primary role has evolved into something the researchers call a life partner. Now, I know that sounds a little sentimental, but it's not. It's a technical conclusion based on a deep analysis of how people are weaving this technology into the very fabric of their daily lives. Planning vacations, getting relationship advice, figuring out what to cook for dinner, drafting a sensitive text to a family member. It's becoming a go-to companion for life's challenges, big and small, far beyond the confines of a 9-to-5 job. And this chart right here, this is the smoking gun. Just look at the velocity of this change. A year ago, non-work-related conversations were already the majority, but just barely, at 53%. Fast forward to today, and that number has exploded to over 70%. That means for every 4 conversations happening on the platform, 3 of them have nothing to do with work. And what's fascinating is that work-related use has also grown steadily, but personal use has gone absolutely parabolic. Now, for economists, this points to a massive and mostly unmeasured creation of what's called consumer surplus, all the real value we get in our lives that doesn't have a price tag. For investors, the takeaway is even more direct. If your AI strategy is only focused on the enterprise, you are missing 70% of the action. The colossal untapped market is in consumer-facing life apps.
All right, so let's move on to our second surprising truth. And this one is all about the dramatic demographic shifts in the user base. You see, if the first truth showed us what people are using AI for, this one tells us who is using it. And the story here is one of incredible, rapid democratization. For a long time, AI felt like it was trapped in a bubble. For coders, for tech enthusiasts in Silicon Valley. But the data shows that bubble has burst. AI is officially going mainstream. This timeline is, and I'm not exaggerating, nothing short of revolutionary. Look at these numbers. In early 2023, the user base was exactly what you'd expect for an early adopter tech product, a staggering 80% male. But then, look at the speed of the shift. Just a year later, the share of female users had more than doubled to 37%. And by the middle of this year, it didn't just reach parity, it flipped. Women now make up the majority of weekly active users. This isn't just a closing gap. It's a complete demographic transformation in about 18 months. This is perhaps the single most powerful piece of evidence that generative AI has crossed the chasm, from a niche technology for early adopters into a true mainstream utility for everyone. And this story of democratization isn't just about gender, it's global. For me, this statistic was one of the most eye-opening in the entire report. The rate of AI adoption, the growth rate, is more than 4 times faster in low- and middle-income countries than it is in high-income nations like the US or Western Europe. This just shatters the myth that advanced AI is some kind of luxury good for the developed world. In reality, it's becoming a powerful engine of empowerment in emerging markets. It's a tool that allows for a kind of developmental leapfrogging, giving people access to information, education, and business tools that were previously out of reach. So for all the investors listening, let me be very clear. The next billion AI users are not coming from California and New York. They're coming from India, Nigeria, Brazil, and Indonesia. Now we've arrived at our third truth, and this one is absolutely critical for all the knowledge workers, the creatives, the strategists in our audience. This finding completely redefines not just what we do with AI, but how the most effective people are interacting with it. It reveals a really sophisticated pattern of human-AI collaboration that is a world away from the simple idea of automation. We tend to think of ChatGPT as an automated writer. You give it a prompt, it spits out an essay. But the data shows that's not how it's being used most of the time. In fact, it's used more like a world-class editor. Look at this chart. A full 2/3 of all writing-related requests involve users providing their own text first, asking the AI to modify it, to edit it, to summarize it, to translate it, to make it better. Only 1/3 of the time are people actually asking it to create something from a blank slate. This is so important. It shows that most users aren't outsourcing their thinking. They're doing the hard creative work themselves, and then using AI as a tool to augment, refine, and elevate their own initial ideas. And this quote just perfectly captures the essence of what that data means. The report found that this collaborative pattern, using AI as an editor or a thought partner, is most pronounced among high-income, highly educated professionals. These effective users don't see AI as a replacement for their own intelligence. They treat it as a thought partner. They do the primary creative work, and then they leverage the AI to polish it, to challenge their assumptions, to play devil's advocate, and to ultimately elevate their own output. This right here is the critical skill that will define the next generation of successful professionals. It's not about prompt engineering, it's about collaborative thinking. Okay, so let's move on to our final 2 truths. And this is where the report gets really provocative. The findings here move beyond simple usage statistics and start to reflect much deeper, more complex societal patterns. They reveal how AI isn't just a neutral tool. It's a mirror that is reflecting our existing social structures and in some cases even exposing some of our most deeply ingrained human desires. This table presents a divide that is frankly pretty worrying. The research uncovered a very clear correlation between a user's socioeconomic status and how they interact with the AI. High-income, highly educated users, as we just discussed, overwhelmingly adopt that collaborative thought partner approach. But in contrast, users from lower-income backgrounds tend to favor a more automated, one-click generation style, using it for simple, direct answers or to generate content from scratch. Now, why is this so dangerous? Because it risks creating a vicious cycle. The group that already possesses strong critical thinking skills is using AI to make those skills even stronger, while the other group may be using AI in a way that lets those same skills atrophy. This could lead to AI amplifying rather than reducing existing socioeconomic inequalities. And now for the 5th and final truth, and this is one that is often ignored or whispered about in mainstream reports.
A separate analysis that was cited by the Harvard and OpenAI researchers found that sexual content was the second largest use case category they identified, accounting for a massive 13% of all interactions. This reveals that alongside all the practical needs for work and life, AI is being used as a private, non-judgmental space to explore deeply personal, intimate, and sometimes taboo aspects of human psychology and desire. It's a powerful, potent reminder that technology is never just about productivity. It's also a vessel for our most fundamental and sometimes hidden human needs. So, we have these 5 truths. We know who is using ChatGPT and, in surprising detail, exactly how they're using it. This brings us, inevitably, to the multi-trillion-dollar question that is on the mind of every investor, founder, and tech employee on the planet right now. Is this a bubble? Are we in 1999 all over again? Are these sky-high valuations built on a foundation of hype, or is there a real, sustainable value being created here? Now, the report doesn't give a simple yes or no answer, of course. But what it does do is provide us with all the data we need to build a robust, intelligent argument for both sides of this debate. So let's put on our analyst hats for a minute and weigh the evidence.
Let's break down the arguments here, looking at both sides of the coin. The case for real, durable value is powerful. You have a massive, sticky, and still growing user base of 700 million people a week. They are using the tool to solve practical, everyday problems, and they're integrating it deeply into their lives. That's the trifecta for sustainable value. But the bubble risk factors are just as real and just as serious. That socioeconomic usage divide is a huge red flag. If a majority of users get stuck in low-value automation, the promised economy-wide productivity boom may never materialize. The path to actually monetizing that 70% of non-work usage is still very much unclear. And maybe most surprisingly for people in the industry, the report finds that high-value professional use cases like writing software code actually make up a very small fraction of total activity. The hype around enterprise AI may be way ahead of the reality.
So, what does this all mean for you? How do you turn these insights into a strategic edge? Let's get really specific. For investors, the data points to 3 massive opportunities that might be undervalued right now. 1. Consumer-facing life apps, because that's where 70% of the usage is. 2. The explosive growth in emerging markets. And 3. Tools that are built for decision support, things that augment human intelligence rather than trying to fully replace it. For knowledge workers, the message is a stark warning. Master the art of collaborative use. If you're just using AI for one-click automation, you are training your replacement. Your future value lies in your ability to use AI as a thought partner to make your own thinking better. And finally, for everyone, the core skill of our economy is shifting. For centuries, value came from doing things and knowing the answers. In the age of AI, value is shifting to asking better, more creative, more insightful questions. And so we come to the end of our deep dive. What this landmark report truly shows us is that AI is becoming a mirror. It's reflecting our workflows, our social divides, our hidden desires, and our creativity. The technology itself is just going to keep getting smarter and more capable. That's a given. So the real question, the one that will define the next decade, isn't about the AI. It's about us. How will we choose to collaborate with it? Will we use it to deepen our thinking or to outsource it? To bridge the divides in our society or to make them wider? That is the choice that lies before all of us. Welcome back to the Dr. Pi channel. Don't forget to like and share.